We turn our focus now on the business desk to the business of music in South Africa, looking at copyrights, artist management, ownership, and the overall monetizing of the sector. Now, this discussion comes following the passing of yet another artist, a member of pioneering Kwaito group TKZ, Tukullo Makesh Shabalala. For more on this, we speak to arts practitioner Dr Sipho Sithole. Thank you so much for joining us in studio. Oftentimes, we speak of artists who leave a legacy of a body of work, but never really about the amount of wealth they've created through their product. Let's talk about where we stand in South Africa there, because ownership and music rights has been a big debate.
Hey, we'll need a full conference, a 2-day conference to go through the issue. But it starts with the master. If we are a recording artist, it starts with the ownership of the master itself, which is the album. And then there is a popular saying that says, whoever pays for the master owns the master. So in this case, if the record company has paid for the recording and has signed the artist, that means that that master itself is then owned by the record company. So the record company is responsible for the exploitation of the master through the release, whether digital or physical, or further licensing it into other further releases, whether it's in a compilation. But inside that master recording sits two really main royalties. This is where the first income stream comes for the artist itself.
Right.
It's the artist royalty, which is through the sale of the album itself, whether physical or digital. It's the composer's royalties, which is now the actual, what they call mechanical royalties. Now, both of them have a different weight, but I would say that the composer's royalties actually have a massive weight because the ownership of the composition itself can have the long-lasting exploitation because you can further sink it into adverts. It can be used for anything, and after which then you have to get the rights for the exploitation of that. Now, the artist royalties from the sale of the albums has got a sort of deficiencies because it depends on how the album is performing. So if the album is not performing and selling that much, the artist might not earn much from the sale of it. You might find that in the song sits two different people. There is the artist who's the singer or the performer on the song, and then there is the composer of the song.
Right.
Now, you might not sell the album, but a composer, just that song itself, can actually be synced in a brand I won't mention on television for 2 million, for 3 million, you know, for instance. And I remember many years ago, the biggest transaction was the Ladysmith Black Mambazo's Cool baked beans.
Advert,
yes, you know. Even us at Native, we've been lucky with things like that. So that is one part. And that one stays as is. But then the life of the artist beyond the album really depends on how the artist is accepted in the market.
And that's where I want us to go with this discussion, because how the artist then makes and creates revenue in the music industry in South Africa has become of grave importance. You have an interesting choice of words when you talk of the sale and how the dynamics work in using the word exploitation.
Yes.
And in this case, it is not to the benefit of the artist. How do we expand on that to ensure that there's an even balance? I mean, it's not a South African problem. Artists in the likes of the US have the same type of issues, but at least they are winning in that battle where they own the masters, they own the rights of their music. How far are we in South Africa? In the context of speaking about the likes of Makesh, he was not only just a hip-hop artist, a Kwaito artist, he was composing, he was a genius with his thoughts, but the compensation thereof is not necessarily matching.
Well, I know that is the general narrative that people would say. But let's start with the record company, for instance. They take a major risk, unlike in America, by the way, when they sign the artist. In America, everything the artist pays for. The recording, the video, whether you are in Miami on the beach with girls and wine and guys and stuff, you're going to pay for that because they deduct it from the sales of that album. In South Africa, the record company risks everything. There is no deduction. First of all, also in South Africa, the artist gets royalties on gross sales. It's not after we have taken the tea and the lady that works in the office and the telephone and the promo. It doesn't work like that. Now, the choice about ownership, I guess, is also about the power play. You would start as an artist and as an aspiring artist. You want to break into the industry. You're going to sign, right? But let's say your first album, your second album does so well, you can then start negotiating to say, from now on, I want to own my masters maybe after 5 years or after 10 years, depending on the appetite of the record company, how much they really want to keep the artist. They might agree to that. I mean, I can tell you now that with us, the Soil, the next 3 albums, they own 50% of the masters. The one they are busy with in studio now and the other 2, we've given them 50% because they have performed and they've actually given us value. So it is us to say, we also want to start having own your master. But I then want to get back to what you're saying, that the life beyond just the master depends on how the artist is perceived and how the artist has actually earned the trust of the audiences and whether the artist is the right person to do business with. Because after that you can have endorsement deals. You can start appearing in front of whatever brand and then you are endorsing that brand at millions of rands if you negotiate. But where the money is on performances. That one is just no doubt. It's on performances. An artist can break with one song in an album of 12 tracks. Right. And get booked just because of that one song. And still perform 7 songs, but people just want that song. And if you are having 3 gigs a week or 4 or 5 gigs, you can actually be earning probably 10 million a year or something. It then depends on the management of how you manage your... Remember also, the life of an artist has got a short lifespan. You are not Prince. You are not Michael Jackson or Hugh Masekela. So what you do in the first 3, 4, 5 years that you are big will depend on how well your business is managed, because you can then invest from that on other things outside of the music, or you can squander the money, you know. And that's important as a parting shot, that in the South African landscape, how do we then start cultivating a culture of business as a musician, business as an artist, for that longevity that we have seen with the likes of the late Brahu? Well, again, it depends on management. I want to always use my own example. I mean, when we broke the artist Sipho, and she became the biggest artist, she was the first artist in our stable to say, don't pay me after every show. Pay me on the 7th of the month of all the shows I've done. And of course, we have taken our 20% because we're a management company. And then on the 15th of each and every month, I used to call her. Tell me that you still have at least 500,000 rands in your bank account. Because I know how much money we are putting into your account. And so that discipline started. Some artists will have just a booking agent. A booking agent doesn't really care. It's just to book you gigs, take their commission. Some artists will have a manager who then says, I'm going to manage your total business over and above the shows. But most importantly, professionalism. Being trusted to do business with. Being responsible. Being on time. You asked me to be here at 7, I was here at 7. And I like that, you know, being consistent and creating a brand and treating yourself as a business. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much. That is Dr Sipho Sithole talking to us about the music of business.